Welcome leadership, public health, and higher education students. My name is Chris Hirschler. I'll be covering Chapter 13, Leadership Ethics, in the text Leadership Theory and Practice, 7th edition by Peter Nordhaus. This is a demonstration lesson. It will give you a guide for your own presentation. It will also be part of Week 1 discussions. I've inserted this slide with directions taken directly from the syllabus. For example, you'll want to find 5 to 7 minutes of carefully selected videos, and not just the first video that you come across. You might include 2 or 3 and let us know. Watch from a minute 30 to minute 3:15, for example. The third bullet point, you'll include key ideas and thought-provoking questions from a peer-reviewed article and popular press articles. You'll ask these questions. What does it mean? So what? Why does this matter? Who cares? You'll facilitate discussion and engagement with a modified or shortened case study. If it's a short case study, you might use the whole thing, but if it's a longer one, you'll need to modify it. The second to last bullet point, you'll play a lead role in facilitating discussion on your chapter. So as students are posting in discussion, you'll really more carefully follow that and add your own commentary. And submit it a bit early so that I have a chance to look it over. Thank you much. Next, I take some key points from a book review of the text Ethics, the Heart of Leadership. Please take a moment and read the paragraph that comes from the text, Ethics, the Heart of Leadership. I've highlighted key points. It's important that leaders be honest and transparent. During this current pandemic, many businesses are hurting. Leaders should be honest and say, yes, we will need to lay off, let's say, 50 employees because we have a budget deficit of $5 million. That's being transparent. They need to be vulnerable and let employees know that I don't have all the answers, for example. And if you have good ideas, let me know. If you think some of the ideas or approaches that we're doing aren't working, let us know. I'm open to being challenged. We want the best ideas. It's also important to help people achieve their goals during good times and bad, and to model sacrifice. So recently, you might have seen the Michael Jordan special. One of the things he says is that, I never asked anyone on the team to do more than I was willing to do. Ethics is concerned with the kinds of values and morals an individual or society finds desirable or appropriate. Ethics is concerned with the virtuousness of individuals and their motives. It provides a basis for understanding what it means to be a morally decent human being. Ethics is concerned with what leaders do and who leaders are. Ethical issues are either implicitly or explicitly involved. The choices leaders make and how they respond in a given circumstance are informed and directed by their ethics. These 2 popular press articles from 2018 highlight that executives or CEOs make a lot of money, and their salaries are, often dwarf by 25 times or more the average salary of an employee. The one on the right, underpaid CEOs 4 times more likely to lay off employees, research says. So I've created a scenario I'd like you to consider. You're the CEO of Good Enough Manufacturing. You've climbed the corporate ladder and now you're making $10 million per year. You are well respected, but you find yourself in a situation. You have an operating budget deficit of $5 million. The board has called for layoffs of 100 employees with an average salary of $50,000 a year. Times 100 employees, that's the $5 million right there. The instability of the markets has you concerned about the coming year as well. So it's not just the current budget, but projecting into the future. Tough times are ahead. What would you do? Many institutions of higher education have been impacted greatly as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. As a result, President Leahy sent an email to employees and it's also covered here in NewJersey.com, that he's taking a 25% pay cut temporarily to help balance the budget. Table 13.1, Kohlberg's Stages of Moral Development. Level 1, Pre-conventional morality. Stage 1, a person chooses not to steal because they don't want to get caught and get punished. So I follow the rules so I don't get hurt. Stage 2, this is the quid pro quo. I'll do this for you if you do that for me. Level 2, conventional morality. Reasoning based on society's views and expectations. So stage 3, interpersonal accord or agreement and conformity. You're trying to please a boss, a supervisor, someone in authority, in this case a teacher in the photo. Stage 4, maintaining the social order. I follow the rules and support the laws of society. You don't speed on campus because you're following the rules. Level 3 is post-conventional morality. Reasoning is based on conscience and creating a just society. So stage 5, social contract and individual rights. The person is wearing a mask at the grocery store, and the idea with mask wearing during this pandemic is not that it's going to protect you, it's to protect others. So the idea is I wear a mask to protect you, not me, because unless you're wearing an N95 mask, it won't protect you, but it will protect others from the aerosolized virus particles. Stage 6, universal principles. I act out of my internalized and universal principles of justice. So the image advocate for animals, this is the person who believes that animals as sentient beings, animals who are capable of emotions and experiencing pain, they're advocating for them out of a principle of justice because it's, the right thing to do. That's the idea. Domains of ethical theories. On the left, the theory focuses on conduct. So consequences or teleological theories include ethical egoism. Ethical egoism states that a person should act so as to create the greatest good for her or himself. Utilitarianism states that we should behave so as to create the greatest good for the greatest number. From this viewpoint, the morally correct action is the action that maximizes social benefits while minimizing social costs. Duty, or deontological theories, focus on doing what's right, doing what is morally correct. So the ethical egoism and utilitarianism focus on consequences, but deontological theories focus on the consequences, but also the duty to act morally. There are also virtue-based theories, essentially stating that a person should do what is virtuous, essentially regardless of the outcome. What is, the correct virtuous thing to do? Figure 13.1, you see ethical egoism is in the upper left-hand corner, indicating a high concern for self-interest and a corresponding low concern for the interest of others. Utilitarianism, again, attempts to create the greatest good for the greatest number. And so there would be some benefit for the individual, but also the most people impacted. Altruism, far right bottom corner, Mother Teresa is an example of someone who gave her life in the service of others. And so high concern for the interest of others, low concern for self-interest. Does this image represent altruism, utilitarianism, or ethical egoism? Clearly, the person is weighing their self-interest as being greater than honor, virtue, justice, fairness, equality, and integrity. So this would be the epitome of ethical egoism. However, part of the theory holds that if you're doing something that benefits yourself, it's the right thing to do. So it is a philosophy. You have to decide whether it's the philosophy you want to adopt. Watch at least the first 6 minutes and 40 seconds. In your eCampus discussion, refer to the video and explain why some leaders act unethically and What is one suggestion that might help a leader to act ethically? Deontological theory is derived from the Greek word dios, which means duty. So, telling the truth, keeping promises, being fair, and respecting others are all examples of actions that are inherently good, independent of the consequences. This perspective focuses on the actions of the leader and his or her moral obligations and responsibilities to do the right thing. From the deontological or duty-based view of ethics, it's important to tell the truth, keep promises, be fair, and respect others. Former President Bill Clinton, while he was president and married to Hillary Clinton, had an affair with a young intern at the White House in the Oval Office and then lied about that affair. Did he have a duty to tell the American public about that affair? Or was it his own personal, private life? Did he have a duty not to violate his position of power? In regard to President Trump, fact checkers indicate that he has made 16,000 false or misleading claims. I believe the current number stands at over 18,000. But what do you think about the current situation in the presidency and either the truthfulness or lack thereof? According to Heifetz, leadership involves the use of authority to help followers deal with conflicting messages that emerge in rapidly changing work environments and social cultures. Leaders must use authority to mobilize people to face tough issues. I use an example here from a blog I wrote in One Green Planet titled How Sustainable Universities Can Decrease the Carbon Footprint of Study Abroad Programs. At the time, I was faculty director of study abroad. As soon as I was hired, I realized I had a conflict. I view myself as an environmentalist, and my job had then become to essentially increase the carbon footprint of students. In other words, to promote studying abroad, getting on a plane, and travel, which contributes to one's carbon footprint to a very large degree. View this video on YouTube, and then in your eCampus discussion, refer to the video, the interview with Tim Cook, and address, where does your ethical compass come from? In regard to business ethics, do you think of extreme cases? In other words, large businesses affecting millions of people, major violations. Do you try to leave things better than you found them? Do your daily actions align with your ethical approach? There is a dark side to leadership, in part because of the power that is accorded to the leader. That's what makes it so important that leaders are ethical and engage in ethical behavior and avoid the toxic triangle. The toxic triangle describes the coming together of three different forces: destructive leaders, susceptible followers, and conducive environments. Destructive leaders tend to be charismatic, narcissistic, and embrace an ideology of hate. Susceptible followers fall in one of two groups. Conformers have unmet needs, low core self-evaluations, and low maturity. Colluders, or those who work actively with the destructive leader, have ambition, a similar worldview, and bad values. Conducive environments include instability, perceived threat, cultural values, lack of checks and balances, and ineffective institutions. And there has been some discussion in politics that, maybe our democracy is failing. What do you think? As you consider these principles of ethical leadership, I think it's helpful to consider either a positive or negative example of a leader. Does that leader respect others? Do they serve others? Do they really emphasize justice? Do they manifest honesty? And do they attempt to build community? This peer-reviewed article from Frontiers in Psychology titled Ethical Leadership and Follower Moral Actions investigating an emotional linkage. Comes from a study in China. They looked at a number of different organizations. They interviewed and surveyed 64 leaders and 289 followers. And you can see the model. One of the steps is leader core self-evaluation, which included generalized self-efficacy. In other words, the leader's belief in their ability to accomplish what they want to accomplish. They also self-survey of their self-esteem, emotional stability, and locus of control. In other words, do they believe that they control events or that outside external events are what is predictive of an outcome? Other praising moral emotions. This was a survey for the followers. To what degree did leaders elevate them, inspire awe, inspiration, gratitude, admiration? So those things were measured, and what they found was that if the leader was generally had high levels of self-efficacy, high levels of self-esteem, emotionally stable, a internal locus of control, and that the leader inspired gratitude, admiration, etc., that those employees were more likely to report unethical issues and engage in ethical, not unethical behavior. In this case study, you are the owner of a small trucking company that employs 50 drivers. You just opened a new route, and it promises to be one that pays well with an ideal schedule. Only one driver can be assigned to the route, but 7 have applied. Who do you choose? How do you make that decision? Look at the principles of distributive justice. And these principles are applied in different situations. So should it be that they have an equal share or opportunity, maybe a flip for it, essentially? Should it be according to individual need, person's rights, individual effort, societal contribution, or based on merit or performance? Please discuss this in your eCampus discussion. Although this case study is not the one I chose to include for eCampus discussions, feel free to discuss it if you like. It's an interesting case. A chairperson has to choose only one research assistant with 4 competing students for that position. How do you decide? Using the principles of distributive justice, who would Angie choose to become the research assistant? Those principles are found in the previous case study. At the end of the chapter, you'll find the perceived leader integrity scale. Choose one leader. It might be President Trump, President Obama, Chancellor Angela Merkel from Germany, President Patrick Leahy from Monmouth University, Hillary Clinton, or another leader that you choose. And then, with that person in mind, answer these questions. Does that leader put his or her personal interests ahead of the organization? Would that leader risk other people to protect himself or herself in work matters? Do they enjoy turning down requests? Deliberately fuel conflict between other people? Would they blackmail an employee? Would they deliberately exaggerate people's mistakes to make them look bad to others? Etc. Is the leader evil? Is the leader not interested in tasks that don't bring personal glory or recognition? Does that person do things that violate organizational policy and then expect others to cover for him or her? Would that leader allow someone else to be blamed for his or her mistake? Would they deliberately avoid responding to email, telephone, or other messages to cause problems for someone else? Would they make trouble for someone who got on his or her bad side? Would they engage in sabotage against the organization? Does the person deliberately distort what other people say? Is the person a hypocrite? Are they vindictive? Would they try to take credit for other people's ideas? Do they like to bend the rules? Would they withhold information or constructive feedback because he or she wants someone to fail? Would they spread rumors or gossip to try to hurt people? Are they rude or uncivil to coworkers? Would try to hurt someone's career because of a grudge? Do they show unfair favoritism towards some people? would steal from the organization, falsify records? Do they have high moral standards? Next, score the results and think about what that means and include some brief comments in your eCampus discussion. If you selected someone you think is a highly ethical leader, they likely scored in the 30 to 32 point range. They're highly ethical and you evaluated them as trustworthy and principled. If they scored 33 to 45 points, you consider them to be essentially moderately ethical. They might engage in some unethical behaviors under certain conditions. If they scored 46 to 120, that is low ethical. Your impression is that they are dishonest, unfair, and unprincipled almost any time he or she has the opportunity.